What's up, Unity community, and welcome back to another official Unity live stream here on twitch.tv/Unity and, of course, the official Unity YouTube page. My name is Jackson. I am one of your community managers, and it is my job to bring you all of the live stream content that you see on these channels. It is our hope that you come here, connect with the Unity community, and leave feeling inspired, educated, and informed, maybe just a little bit entertained. Thank you all so very much for being here today, whether you're watching on Twitch or YouTube. We have a fantastic show planned for you all today. We are going to be diving into new unity.com, learn.unity.com resources, showing you how you could go about creating your first 2D game. This is a beginner course, but we think that there's a lot for people to learn here. And we've already seen in the chat from earlier today, this is perfect timing for some people. So there's a lot for you to dive into and learn here. We'll be joined by a couple of legends from the Learn team, and we'll be talking through all of the hard work that they do as well. And I can see them chuckling behind the scenes because I'm overhyping them. Maybe I'm not. Maybe they are legends. You don't know. We'll know later. But great to have you all again. If you are watching live, be aware that this is a conversation and we are paying attention. We are seeing you, whether you are watching on Twitch, like we've got Bagardi Tech here. We've got White Room Gaming. We've got Andrew the Day, Namaste Geek. If you're watching over on YouTube, like SF Leet, like Doom, like Hamza, like the Bull always is. Wherever you are watching, we're paying attention. We see your comments. If you have questions, ask them, etc., etc., etc. If you are watching after the fact as a VOD on YouTube, take a look down at that navigation bar, as it will likely be chaptered out for you to hop ahead to whatever portion most appeals to you. But Unity community, as always, thrilled to have you all here. Anytime we get to bring you new learning material like this, I always get very, very excited. It's such a fun moment in time to bring everyone together to show off something our team's worked really hard on and something that will likely and hopefully help all of you as well. So as we often do in getting ready for these streams, I would love to know where in the world you are tuning in from. Like we've got a friend already from Brazil. I think I saw someone pop in to say that they are in Pakistan. So welcome on in, everybody. We've got Thailand, very cool, New Jersey, India, Brazil, obrigado. Thank you for being here. Fantastic to have you all. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We've got, like I said, a great stream planned for you. And I think it's about time that we jump into it. Please put your digital hands together in a warm welcome to the Learn team representatives, James and Aaron. Welcome back. Woohoo! Aaron, starting with you.
Thank
How
you.
are you?
Oh, I am great. Thank you.
That's
Thank
what
you.
I like to hear.
Yeah, you got July 4th coming up, but as a Canadian like yourself, I've already celebrated on July 1st for Canada Day. So we're all good.
That's what I like to hear. James, a long weekend approaches. How are you feeling?
Oh, feeling so good about that. This week for me was really 2 days on. And it feels like the opposite of a weekend work schedule, and it's pretty. I think we should adopt this as the new norm. I actually really like it.
Two-day work weeks. I'm in. You have my attention. You have my full support on this. However I can help. Now, Aaron, James, you both have been on a stream before. If we have some new folks in chat, as we so often do, again, we're live on these channels twice a week. Not always with the Learn team, but if anyone didn't know what the Learn team is, what is learn.unity.com? How do you guys typically go about explaining it?
Okay, I guess I'll answer. So yeah, Unity Learn is really a resource for anyone that's either interested in learning about Unity, how to create games, how to create animations, anything within Unity, or looking to upskill in a particular area. So if there's any part of the Unity engine that you are interested in learning about, we most likely have a tutorial or course about it. And if we don't, definitely let us know.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that's a big part of it as well. It's something that we kind of discussed last. So again, if anyone is unfamiliar with the work we do here or what the Learn team does, we had the team on for a stream of about 2 months ago because tanks, like a classic, like fundamental, like staple tutorial for people, got remastered, and the team that did it, obviously being a part of the group in this room, we brought it in to showcase it and walk through it with everybody. And it was actually a really, really fun stream. For some people, it was nostalgia and a step back. For some people, it was brand new and really, really exciting in that sense as well. So occasionally we'll bring you guys in to kind of showcase the materials and give everybody a little bit of an overview. Now, there's a high likelihood that we won't get through the entire tutorial, but that's not the intention of today's stream. It's to show you the final product, show you what you will create if you go through these tutorials and these learning materials, and then kind of get you started. And if you want to follow along, you're more than welcome to. If you're watching this video later, you can follow along with Aaron as we go. However, it is just to it's to wet your whistle a little bit, to familiarize you just a touch here so that you're aware. So you guys when did Sprite Flight come out? Was this the beginning of June?
What is time,
right?
Jackson?
Just a great question.
That's a deep question. Yeah.
Aaron and James were both on intercontinental travel last week. So when you're I don't know, I really believe you. Typically for me, I'm I don't know, man.
But I'm pretty sure it was
4 different time zones.
Yeah, end of May. June 1. It was live.
Okay. Excellent. And I'm going to continue to put those links in chat. That's not the right one. I don't know why it keeps doing this to us, but I'll make sure that you guys have the links so that you know where you're going if you wanted to follow along as well. So take a look right there. We've got Sprite Flight. So Sprite Flight is the name of it. Fun name. Aaron, did you come up with the name?
Oh, that's a sore subject, actually.
Oh no, I didn't know.
The team struggled for weeks on trying to come up. We did Fly a Try was a winner for a while, but it just didn't sit right. And then finally, someone, I believe it was Connor on our team, came up with Sprite Flight, and everyone just loved it. And here we are today.
Shout out to Connor! Congratulations, the naming legend. So where in someone's journey to learn Unity would you recommend that they touch on Sprite Flight? Where does it kind of fill this need? Who is it targeting? And James, I suppose, yeah. Aaron, James, Aaron?
Yeah, I got it. Well, gotcha. We're hoping that it could be the first ever thing that you do in Unity. Because there's this classic course called Rollerball, which is sort of creating your first 3D game. And this is kind of the 2D equivalent. So anyone who comes to Unity and they actually want to make a 2D game and you want to just get an early win and just get exposure to how to make a 2D game from start to finish, this is the perfect introduction for you.
That's awesome. And I know James mentioned it earlier as well. The Learn team tries to put together learning materials and tutorials and courses for a whole variety of subjects where people are curious or maybe struggling or eager to learn something new. If you guys do have questions, this team is paying attention. So if you have an area that you feel is underserviced in terms of learning materials, throw it in the comments of this video and we'll see if there's any patterns or overwhelming support for particular topics. Because again, you guys do a fantastic job of listening to the community and identifying where there's that need. I will say anecdotally on my end, in trying to create the live stream content, a lot of times I go through related keyword searches. So I go in and I say, okay, people are searching for Unity tutorial and beginner and first and 2D are always right at the top. So we're very aware that this is a beginner tutorial. And for a lot of you who are here frequently, you're probably a little further on in your journey. But I think a return to basics can always service anyone. And hopefully this serves as a great opportunity for a lot of new people to join us and see some very cool things as well. So you mentioned the 2D equivalent of Rollerball, which we also featured on stream for a little bit. Do we want to take a second now and kind of showcase what both of those projects are, and then we can kind of get the ball rolling on
the Sprite flying, as we say?
Yeah. So this here is the Rollerball course that we have. As Aaron mentioned, this was kind of the initial spark that then led to Sprite Flight. We obviously had this 3D beginner game. This is, for people that are interested in creating their first 3D games, we recommend people going through this course. And then, we decided, obviously, a lot of people are also interested in creating 2D games, so why not have an equivalent of that? And what's really exciting about this course in particular is that you don't have to use any external assets. we use all of the default sprites within the Unity editor to create your player character, the obstacles, and everything. So there's no need to, like, if you want to, you can go to the asset store and obviously, grab some assets or create your own. But for the purposes of this course, and to kind of keep it at a beginner level, everything you need is in the Unity editor.
Perfect. Yeah, and if anyone's completely unfamiliar, and we see it often where we'll put in like learn.unity.com resources for people, and they're like, I didn't know that this existed at all. This is what learn.unity.com looks like. You can kind of see your left side, which is your step-by-step, and then obviously the course overview and the video. There's a lot of video to accompany the text as well, so it's a fantastic learning resource. Maybe not to inflate your guys' ego too much, but there's a lot for people to learn here. There's also a very cool thing worth shouting out, the learning essentials pathway, which is like, hey, if you were to just pick up Unity for the first time, can you pop in, can you go step by step and learn all of the foundation that you would need, which is very, very cool. I do want to bring in a question from the YouTube chat. Will we save a record of the stream? All of the videos that we create here in live stream form will exist in the same space on YouTube as well. So if you want to come back later, you're able to check out the entirety of the stream. So we saw Rollerball, and now we're looking at Sprite Flight here. So this is the newest. This is the new hotness, right?
Oh yeah, fresh off the presses.
So this is what we'll be digging into a little bit today as well. So again, step by step, pictures, videos, a little bit of everything. So if this is something that you wanted to follow along to right now and ask questions along with it, you're more than welcome to. We do have a couple of questions and perhaps comments coming through. If we don't have time in the moment to ask these questions, we will circle back towards the end of the stream and just check in on any questions that we maybe didn't get to in time. But is there anything that stands out that people might be surprised about in Sprite Flight, or is it, a very straightforward tutorial for people to follow along with?
It's very straightforward, and it's not. You'll see when James demos the game, it's a familiar game style. It's not too different from Asteroids or some other kind of classic arcade games. And for a first beginner project, that's actually kind of what you want. You don't want to be bogged down in like the details of understanding how the game should or should not work, because you're focused on actually learning. And so if you kind of already know how the game should play, then you can sort of focus on just executing it. I remember one of the first games I ever made with Unity was Tetris, and just trying to replicate existing functionality is a really good challenge. And doing kind of clones is actually a great way to learn, because it forces you into kind of uncomfortable situations that you might avoid if you were designing it yourself, where you say, oh, I don't know how to do that, I'll do something else. But it kind of forces you need to figure out how to rotate those Tetris pieces like exactly like it does in the game. So it's a good way to go for a first project.
No, that's super cool. Also, I love Tetris, so you're already speaking my language. I would say if I added up all of the hours I've spent playing games in my life, Tetris would probably come out on top, which is kind of wild to say. Wow. But I mean, when I got hired at Unity almost a year ago, I was like, I should probably learn some of the editor basics. And I did. And you'll find that a lot of like the beginner tutorials that you see out there are recreating games that I made. Flappy Bird. It kind of worked. So like, I did it, you guys. I'm basically a
classic
here.
Yeah. I remember when we were actually coming up with what game do we want to learners to make. We had a list of different games, and kind of just like choosing kind of like the pros and cons of like, oh, if we make this game, will it be easy enough, or what we can do. And then we came across this idea, and I immediately was like, yeah, this is such a good idea to also not only just like learn the basics of Unity, but also just expand it. And what we do a lot with our courses now, especially now, is we want to make sure that the finished product, what you have when you complete the course, is just the start. We want to empower you afterwards to then create it and make it your own. And so there's a lot of opportunity, especially with this type of game, to take what you learn from here and then further that, and make it something completely unique and different, and that's true to you and your game design capabilities.
Yeah, like you mentioned, it's the foundation. We've done it in the past a couple of different times where we're like, hey, everybody, revisit this tutorial and then put your own spin on it, submit it. We'll do a showcase and we'll show off different ones. And we've seen that level of creativity from people. It's usually very, very impressive. So again, you can go through this all following it to the letter step by step and just be done with the course, or you can then take it a step further and, like you said, put your own spin on it, which is very, very fun. We had another comment I want to pull in from YouTube here. Arendim's World says, I learned Unity Essentials for like 19 days and uploaded the game in Unity Play, which is super cool to see. Like, I know that learning pathways essentials is so like, it's step by step. I mean, it could be the quintessential, like, go in and learn from the beginning. You've opened it for the first time ever. So it's really, really cool to see people connecting. For you guys, is it a heartening experience? Is it kind of thrilling to connect with people who have used the materials that you have created?
It sure is. Yeah. It sounds kind of cheesy, but that's what makes it all worthwhile. You know, when you when you see people who have actually completed it, and you know, oh my gosh, it actually worked. People did it, and that's kind of it's always heartwarming.
Good.
Yeah.
Good,
And then
good,
from
good.
my perspective, it's interesting, especially going through like the Unity Essentials. I think I'm also in the creative core, but like I'm actually in those videos, and people like reach out to me all the
Right.
time, like on LinkedIn, saying, you know, oh my God, I've just completed the course, and you know, thank you so much for helping guide me through this. It's just really interesting, you know, because I was also them, you know, several years ago, just learning
Mhm.
Unity, and to now be in you know, on the other side of it, and helping people like go through this, and hopefully having an easier, better time than I did when I was originally
Yeah.
learning Unity. Yeah, it's definitely makes it all worth it.
That's so cool. So again, and this will be the last thing because I think we should definitely jump into it. But for me, as a community manager over the last handful of years, I came from the game side and now stepping into, being a community manager with game developers themselves. It's been really, really cool to see just how eager, not just willing, eager indie devs are to help support other devs. And the sentiment that you just shared, James, I've heard from a number of different people. We did interviews with Phasmophobia. We have an upcoming one next week with another indie dev that have all basically said the same thing. If I had the resources that we are now creating when I was learning, I would have been thrilled. Or if I had access to the developers the way that I do now, I would be thrilled. And the eagerness to get to the top and then help people up behind them has been so, so cool. So what I'm saying is, you Unity community, you guys are awesome. Do
Can
we
I
want
just
to
say
show
one?
off?
Can I just say one thing?
Absolutely.
Just based on the response about working on Unity Essentials, and I feel like we kind of get this often around, like, you know, I'm just learning Unity, I'm on Unity Learn, where do I start? And I think that's a good opportunity, kind of just to share, you know, Unity Essentials is a great place to start too. 2D Sprite Flight is a great place to start. 3D Beginners, you know, we also have these new IETs that we just launched in Unity 6.1 or 6.2, maybe both of them, I think. Aaron, you can
IET
correct me if I'm
is
wrong.
a in-editor tutorial, correct?
Yes.
Got
And
it.
so there are multiple places to start. And so I just kind of wanted to shout out that, you know, it really is, we're creating these beginner areas for people that are, that maybe learn a bit differently. Like, your pathways are a bit longer, but they are more, you're kind of being handheld through this experience. So if you need,
Right.
a learning that is kind of like that, we definitely suggest going through the pathways. And they are kind of built towards, you know, folks that are interested in turning this into a career. But if this is a hobby, or you're just looking to like learn how to create a 2D game, for instance, you know, starting with Sprite Flight is a great spot. Same thing with Rollerball for 3D. Or if you just want to learn how to navigate around the editor, definitely recommend checking out our Getting Started with Unity in editor tutorial in 6.1.
Absolutely, which is super cool to see. Like, congrats to you guys for being able to get those tutorials in editor, which is feels like a necessity. It's awesome for new people that they're going to have that resource. Do we want to show off Sprite Flight, the kind of final product? And James, while you pull that up, I'm going to bring in a couple more questions. We've got one that says, "Hi, I'm new to Unity. Recently accomplished Unity Essentials on Unity Learn, and now starting the started learning the junior programming course. Thanks for the resources. We've got someone else who says, completed the creative course some weeks ago and put the badge on my LinkedIn already. Thank you guys very much. So again, I think one of the beautiful things about what we do in live streams is connecting people and connecting people to you all. I feel like you see numbers and stats of how many people are using your resources, but I hope that the actual feedback and hey, look, I did your thing is meaningful to you guys as well. So this is Sprite Flight. This is what we're going to create today.
Yes.
And you mentioned very reminiscent of, is it Asteroids?
Yeah, kind of similar to Asteroids, but with this one, I already died. The goal of this game is really just to survive as long as you can. And so you have to try and avoid, I'm playing with the mouse, and so I'm just clicking and trying to avoid these obstacles, flying at me. And obviously you can see it gets pretty crazy the more that they start bouncing around. And you
they gain momentum?
They do.
Okay.
Do.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. And obviously you want to avoid the red border. So that you don't go too far out. We also do have sound, but I'm currently sparing your ears because I think it is pretty loud. But I can turn it on real quick if you guys want to hear it.
Give us a quick sample. We'll sit quietly so as to not create any warble. Crushed it, and we did the sound part. It was great. I was sitting there with anxiety building that it was like, okay, we'll just do a quick one, and then it seems that you found yourself a corner that you could have lived forever, and I was like, oh no.
Yeah, but playing a game like this it's not fun just kind of hiding away from the obstacles in the corner.
Agree. You got to challenge yourself a little bit
here.
here.
They'll find you. They'll find you at some point, James.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. What we can do is, James, once we get started here, if you can send me the link to this, I'm going to post it in chat. And if anyone wants to play it and let us know their high score, we could do a little high score challenge while we're going here. Now, you're all we're on the honor system here. You could tell me that you just got 1 million points, but please don't do that.
Or feel free to write in the comments of the...
Oh, that's great.
Sprite Flight as well.
Play.unity.com, the beautiful comment functionality, which is super fun. So we are going to dive into this. Sprite Flight, again, is a base, someone's first 2D game, which is very exciting. It is worth pointing out, and maybe I should have said this earlier, that this is a live stream format, and therefore it's going to be at a relatively casual pace. If you are looking for a tutorial step by step, just the nuts and bolts, just the action, I'll continue to post the link for you all in chat. Go and follow that. But we're gonna take our time with it, and we're gonna chat. So again, if you guys have any more questions, feel free to let us know. But Aaron, we step in. I want to create Sprite Flight. What do I do first here?
Okay, my screen is shared.
Correct.
Okay, here we go. Well, first of all, what you want to do is create a new 2D project from the universal 2D template. And like James mentioned earlier, that's one of the real advantages of this project is that we're not requiring any assets. You just create a blank 2D project, and I'm going to and create project, and it'll open something that looks like this. You don't need any assets, so you just get started. And the first thing I'm going to do in this blank 2D project, it's not very interesting right now, is I'm going to actually change the layout to something a little bit more useful so that we can see the scene view and the game view at the same time. A classic layout here, 2x3. Oh, look at my humiliating list of layouts there. Don't look at that. Don't look at that.
My favorite is the one that's just my layout. And I'm like,
that's my special one. That's my special one that I don't like to share with anyone. And then I put the project underneath the hierarchy. So now we have access to all 5 of the most important windows here. It's looking good. So now what I'm going to do is, just to show you that I am in fact, starting from a totally empty scene, I'm going to create a new scene here in my scenes folder, not use the sample scene. So I'm going to right click on my scenes, create a new scene.
Perfect.
And I'm going to name it game, and I'm going to open it. And as you can see, it just has a main camera in it. And there's my little game view, what the user can see right now, outlined by that rectangle. So it's very, very bare bones, as bare bones as you could possibly get. And just for those of you who have only maybe worked in 3D and you're not too familiar with 2D, the nice thing about it is it sure does simplify navigation in scene view. So I can just right click and drag, and full disclosure, I am on a trackpad here. So so I'm not maybe as fast as some might be on their fancy 3-button mouses. But I'm right clicking and dragging, and I can zoom in. Unlike 3D, where everything is crazy and you can go in all 3 dimensions, 2D simplifies things. So it's going to be nice for beginners who get overwhelmed by 3D navigation. So anyway, here I am in 2D, and the first thing I'm going to do is add one of those pesky obstacles into the scene. And I hadn't done too much 2D development before I started working on this course, and I didn't know that if I go to 2D object and sprite, that all these fun sprite shapes. 2D object sprite. So look at this. You even got different types of hexagons, flat top or a point top. Any preference?
Oh, from us, from
yeah. What do you think, Jackson?
Exciting! I get to help. I'm a flat top kind of guy.
Yeah, me too. I didn't want to say it and bias you, but I am also. So anyway, it made this. What you're saying. This little, and that looks just like one of our little asteroid obstacles. And I'm going to just name it obstacle right here, and I'm going to just set its position at 0, 0, 0, so it's right in the center. And fun fact about the z-axis in your 2D mode is that it actually doesn't matter where we are on the z-axis, because we're looking, like if I were to go here, there's my 3D world, right? And if I were to move it on the z-axis, it actually doesn't change the view because we're just in our 2D view, and it registers things as flat regardless of how far they are from the camera. Now, I'm going to also just change the color to something, scary, like red. So we don't want to bump into it. Yeah, exactly. And then I'm going to just make a couple adjustments to the camera because it's hard to notice now, but if we had our player in here flying around and we had the obstacles and the borders, it would be a little bit tight right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go to my camera, and because we're in what's called this orthographic camera where there's no sense of perspective or depth, in order to change the zoomage, that's the technical term, you actually just increase the size of your camera, your projection. So you see how the little rectangle here is getting bigger, so the screen size is getting bigger, and so it kind of looks like I'm zooming out on my game view here. So I'm going to zoom it out to I don't know, 7.5-ish. And now that'll give the player a little bit more room to maneuver. And while I'm in the main camera, I can also change the background type to a solid color. And this is where I can, make a nice color scheme here. Let's see. This is where I like to, I'm not great with colors. So what I always use is a online color palette generator.
I do too. Yeah.
Let's see. I guess we could just keep it as black. That's like outer space.
What's mine?
But you can make some nice pleasing color combinations if you like.
Humant is mine, and it's you can say I want 5 colors, and they're like, here you go. You can go 2 to I think 7 or 8. I totally agree. It's weird. It's difficult. I don't have that artistic streak. I have to make a lot of thumbnails. So I'm like, I need 2 colors that look good, please. And I just randomize until they kind of give you the parameters and keep them tight. They make sure they go well together. I actually really like it.
Yep. Might I recommend you invest in a color wheel too? Like that is something
like a real life color wheel.
Yeah, it's just you can have it at your desk and you can spin it around, and it shows you which colors are complementary to one another.
Now, does it provide hex codes, James?
No, that you will have to figure out yourself.
Then you take a picture of it on your phone, you ingest it, you put it in Photoshop, you use the eyedropper. Problem solved.
There you go.
Streamlined.
Easy.
All right. Well, now we've got our obstacle floating in outer space, and we're just going to create some screen borders here, some borders around the edges so that the obstacle can't escape into the vast reaches of outer space. And before I do that, actually, I'm going to actually change my aspect ratio. So that's the relationship between the height and the width of your screen. And right now it's free aspect, which means that as I increase or change the size of it, you can see it's actually changing the dimensions there in the scene view rectangle preview. But I actually want to lock my aspect ratio to something like 16:9 or 16:10, so that as I increase it, you see I kind of get this like letterboxing effect. And that's just, especially for beginners, where we're not trying to adjust for different screen sizes and dimensions, which is a real challenge from a kind of UI perspective, to just lock it at a certain aspect ratio and only think about that. And it just, simplifies things a little bit. So I'm going to now create those borders. I'm going to make a 2D object, a sprite, and this time I'm going to go with a square. And I'm going to name this border top. And I'm going to zoom in here, and I'm going to use my rect tool. So you've got all these tools here. Those of you in the chat are probably familiar that the QWERTY keys on your keyboard are let you cycle through these tools. And this rect tool is good for 2D shapes. So I'm going to just drag this here, drag this here, drag this here, and something like that. Doesn't have to be precise or anything. And I'm just going to duplicate that, move it down, make my bottom one, duplicate that, go to my rect tool again, go like that, duplicate that, put this here. And they're named incorrectly, but I'm not going to bore people by renaming them. They should be border top, border bottom, border right, and border left. And then to keep things organized here, I don't like to see anything like this, all these game objects cluttering up my hierarchy. So you could, what I like to do is select all of them, and you can create an empty parent. It's kind of like creating a parent folder to hold them in, which is a really useful thing that was only introduced, I think, in the last version of Unity, somewhere in 2021 or 2022 or something like that. Very, very useful. I don't know how I ever lived without it. So I'm going to name it borders.
Super helpful.
Yeah. Yep.
I like the drama though. You've got to declare for the dramatics. I don't know how I ever lived before this moment.
I mean, game objects can become very unwieldy, especially when you're building a large game. So yeah, that feature is game changer.
Of course.
And I think that is pretty much it for just setting up the kind of main game, kind of the main game world here. Yeah, so I think we're actually ready to move on to tutorial 2 here, which is making this obstacle actually fly around the scene using some physics, some 2D physics. So any questions in the chat that I need to field, Jackson, before I move on?
No, nothing super interesting. We have people hoping for things later in the stream, like what steps we would need to perform before publishing a game, profiling, etc. I know we have it on our, if we have time. It does not seem likely that we'll get there, but hopefully maybe is what we'll sit at with right now. But there is a section of the tutorial itself about publishing, correct?
There sure is. Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And I'll put that link one more time if anyone wants to hop in and learn more.
Nice. So if I were to play my game right now by clicking the play button, you can see that absolutely nothing happens because there are no components on any of these obstacles or any of these objects telling them how to behave. They're just random shapes, visual only, without any behaviors. So the first thing I'm going to do is give this obstacle some physics so that it can move and bounce and collide with things. So I'm going to click Add Component, and you've got rigid body and rigid body 2D. And those are basically the two main objects that you'd use to make an object respond to physics. And the 2D one is nice because it doesn't bother with the Z depth dimension. So it's a little bit more optimized for 2D objects. So you want to select that. And if I were to press play now, you can see that it will just fall to the ground and off the screen. Down.
I expected it to stop. That one was a jump scare.
Yeah. Uh, um, so what you need is a collider component. If I were to zoom in on this, it's just a shape. It's like a cloud or a painting that you have on there. And so it doesn't actually, it looks like it has kind of physical boundaries, but it doesn't. It's just a picture. And so what we need to do is give it sort of physical bounds around that object so that it knows that it can bounce off of things. So I'm going to add a component here, and I'm going to search for collider.
Is it a collider?
It's a collider. You know about colliders, Jackson.
Yes. Okay. This is right up my alley here with my Flappy Bird. I learned some of these. This is the most in tune to the tutorial content I've been. I'm ready.
Yeah. Well, you might be overwhelmed by all these colliders you could possibly choose from. I could narrow it down here and search for collider 2D. We've got all these different shaped 2D colliders. A really nice one. So, they just don't have a hexagon collider. It's not a circle. It's not a capsule. So a polygon collider will just conform to the shape of the
oh, great.
Yeah, of the sprite renderer here, which is defined here. And so you can see actually that green outline is now the physical bounds, which match perfectly to our hexagon. So now if I were to press play, it will go right through.
Yeah.
And that is because these pesky borders also do not come with colliders. And so I'm going to be fancy here. I could just, like a sloth, go one object at a time and add the component, or I could be fancy and I could select all of them and I could add component. And this time, luckily, they have a box collider 2D. So if I click that, because they're square shaped, rectangular shaped, it will do a good job of approximating their shape. So now if I select all of them, you can see they all have that component. And now it should. Yes.
Yay.
Okay. So it just drops like a sack of potatoes and has a very unceremonious splat at the bottom of the screen there.
Right now we have space without gravity.
Exactly. Yeah. So we need to add a physics material to this object. So you've got materials that can define how things look, and then you also have a physics material, which I really like the name of. And actually, it used to be called in Unity, fun fact, physic singular material. And it was so confusing. And I'm really glad they've recently changed it, just in the last version, I think, to physics material.
It was that recent?
Yeah. So it did mean that we had to update all of our learning materials to say physics material instead of physic, but I think worth it for the because all the spell checking was never happy. All the red underlines for our physics material references. Yeah. So I'm going to create a new asset here, and I'm going to make a new folder to stay organized. I'm going to name it materials, and I'm going to create in this folder a new, is it under physics? It's under, where is it under? Is there? Physics, it doesn't, it's not in the subfolder. Physics material right there. Oh, wait, no. Oh, that was close. I have a whole special folder for 2D related things. And that's where I can find my physics material 2D. Because once again, we want it to be optimized for 2D collisions rather than 3D. So if I create that and I name it phys mat bouncy, then I can define the bounciness, and I'm going to do full bounciness at 1. And then I actually need to apply it to my obstacle. So you can see here in my collider, rather than having a regular material which defines how things look, you've got the physics material where I can define the bounciness. So now, theoretically, it should bounce. Oh, there we go. Boing.
Yes.
Yes. Boing. Okay, actually, I'm going to pause it. I'm going to rotate it a little bit so we get a little bit more fun of a... Oh, there we go.
Dang.
So that's, oh, look at that. Okay, it is happy bouncy time for this hexagon. Oh my gosh, I was not expecting that one.
Just have a whole stream where we watch a hexagon do tricks.
I'm down with that.
We just sit here for the next 45 minutes. Whoa, look at that one. I'm into it. I like that.
So now, if you thought that was fun, you prepare yourselves for this one. So what I'm going to do, you just saw how I played and paused it. That's really useful for situations like this where I want to test something, and I want to change it temporarily after I've started. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press play, let it get to full speed, and then what I'm going to do is go to my obstacle in its physics rigid body component. I'm going to change its gravity from 1, which is regular gravity, to 0, like you're in outer space. So now it's got the speed, but it doesn't have the gravity. And so here comes, oh, you know what? I should also rotate it.
Give it a little.
This poor hexagon, you know, I've like paused time and now I'm doing all these things to it. I feel bad, but let's do it. Oh, okay. And now you see what's happening?
Okay.
This is
exactly what we're looking for.
Yeah,
I was really curious how we were going to adjust gravity. So it's literally as simple as changing from 1 to 0. Okay.
There is something mesmerizing about. I feel this could be a screensaver. You could just stop right here and make it a screensaver. And
Bravo Hacks pointed out Windows screensaver time. It's like we could make one. That's what we do. We make a screensaver on a future stream. We get the Unity logo in there and we get it bouncing when it hits those corners.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Yep.
You keep going, but I do have a good question here. Again, gang, if you're paying attention, if you're following along, if you have any questions as we're going, please let us know. We'll do our best to answer them for you.
Cool. Well, now what I'm going to do is, now that I pretty much have it behaving the way I want, I'm going to turn it into a prefab. And a prefab, as most of you probably know, is a reusable prefabricated asset that you can then drag into the scene and then make changes to the one prefab, and it will change all the instances of that prefab. So very, very handy aspect of Unity development there. So I'm going to create a new folder here called prefabs, and I'm going to just drag my obstacle into that folder. And now you see it turned blue, and it turned blue in here, implying this is a prefab and this is an instance of that prefab. And now I can just drag more of these obstacles from my new, reusable library of objects of prefab here. And I'm going to try to make a somewhat interesting, maybe.
What if you wrote your name?
Oh my goodness! Wow, yeah, that's that too much pressure on a live stream. But that's a good idea. Okay, so now we can see. I'll do this test again, and what I'll do is I'm just gonna ramp the chaos up to 1,000 here, and I'm gonna change all their gravity, and I'll rotate all of them a little bit, and then we'll see. So this is, hey.
One of them still has gravity.
Oh, one of them does? Oh my gosh. Oh yeah, this guy up here. Wow, so he's, yeah. But anyway, this is basically the idea here. This is what we're trying to achieve here, that the obstacle's bouncing around and going crazy. So that's good. That's good. We've got kind of a proof of concept there. And while I'm at it, once again, you will notice that I've got this very disorganized list of obstacles. And once again, I'm going to create an empty parent, or Command-Shift-G, to make these obstacles. And now look at how nice and organized everything is under my one obstacle parent object. And then that is it, I think, for that tutorial. We're flying. We're
flying
1/4 of the way through.
Good progress.
We are sprite flying all the way through here.
Yeah, we can make that a thing.
That's something we start using internally every time we're in meetings. Hey, oh yeah, I was sprite flying through that, so it was great. I did want to bring in a question from YouTube here from Degmot, I think. What's the difference between applying the material in the collider against applying it in the rigid body component?
Oh my gosh. I never even noticed that it was possible to apply it in the rigid body. I've always just, it's interesting. I wonder if I just drag, let's do an experiment. Maybe someone can Google that, but if I drag my physics material bouncy onto this object like this, I wonder where it will apply it. It does it in the collider. So I have never, can we apply it multiple times? So someone's going to need to Google that. I do not know.
Okay. So is this a situation of like preference is what it kind of boils down to in this situation? Like, would it in theory work both ways?
Could you just do like a quick test now?
Yeah, let's
See
do it.
what
Okay,
what
let's see what
Do it
happens.
live. That's not
Do
gotten
it
us in trouble
live,
before.
exactly. Okay, so here's the obstacle, and I'm going to apply it here. And I've just disabled all the other obstacles. And let's see. I mean, I'm guessing it's going to work. Just the same. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
Someone don't know. So.
I mean, we don't have
yeah.
the time to as thoroughly dive into this to get a comprehensive answer. But initially, it seems like it works the same way in this specific situation as what I'm seeing. Okay.
Yeah. Well, if someone out there can Google it, I would love to hear the
Yeah.
answer. I don't know.
Anecdotally, we're seeing Ryan and Saintret on Twitch saying, I've always applied it to the rigid body. Let me see. Is Bugatti Tech... let me just read this and we'll see if it makes any sense by the time we get to the end of it. A physics material 2D affects how the collider behaves when it touches other colliders, specifically friction and bounciness, aka restitution. Multiple colliders on the same object can have different materials if needed. Does that make sense?
Interesting. Yes, yes, yes. That does make sense. So I guess, yeah, if you had an object made of multiple things and you only wanted one of them to have some kind of physics material, or they could have different amounts of friction depending on what part of the object was touching the ground. So for example, if you had a car made of 2D shapes, maybe the wheels would have a certain amount of friction or bounciness, and then the car would have a different amount. So that's having them on the colliders allows you to be a little bit more specific. But since we just have one collider, it doesn't matter in this case. Yeah, so that's interesting.
Cool. We're learning together. Go team.
Yes, exactly.
Love that. So we have our prefab, Aaron. What do we do next?
Okay, well now things are either going to start getting good or very bad for some people, because we're going to dive into some coding. And in the course, we actually have this little paragraph disclaimer that says, hey, if you're new to programming, this will be overwhelming and it will be frustrating and you won't fully understand it, and that's okay and that's normal. And it's just kind of like learning a new language where, you know, the first time you hear a word, it's not just going to stick forever. It's just repetition and recognizing patterns and all of that. It is learning a new language. And so it's very similar in that way, where you shouldn't expect to just instantly get it immediately. And it just slowly starts to make more and more sense as you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is create a new script and apply it. That's pretty straightforward. So I'm going to create a new folder here, and it's going to be named scripts. And inside that scripts folder, I'm going to create a new mono behavior script, a default Unity script, and I'm going to name it obstacle. Excuse me. And then I'm going to apply it. So here's where prefabs get interesting. Because I've got all these instances, and rather than applying this script to all of them individually, if I just apply it to one, this prefab, it should apply it to all of these. So if I go to this prefab and then I drag in my obstacle script, then theoretically, if I look here, these all already have the obstacle script. And I feel like that's already just a great example of why prefabs are super duper cool, because you just apply once and it applies that to all of the instances of that prefab in the scene. So I've got it applied here, but of course it doesn't have any actual functionality in it. And so we need to open it up, and you can just double click on it here, or you can double click on it here to open it in your friendly neighborhood IDE, whatever that is for you. It could be Visual Studio Code, Visual Studio, or, you know, Cursor if you're hopping on the AI coding train.
I do want to say, Aaron, kudos to you for coming equipped, ready to go, zoomed in so that everyone can read it. I didn't even need to remind you. You're a pro, and I appreciate you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I actually have pretty bad vision, so this is also good for me.
Okay, great.
No, he's doing it for the stream.
Yeah,
for everyone else. Aaron, you're taking credit away from yourself. I'm out here giving you compliments, and you're like, nah, I just did it for me. Don't worry about it.
Well, these are actually show you how old I'm getting. These are progressive lenses. I got to look through the bottom to get my close-up range here. Okay. So yeah, so if this is your first time seeing a kind of default Unity mono behavior script, this is what it looks like. This is the library that it's referencing. It's using the Unity engine. So basically it knows what a game object is. It knows what a rigid body is. It knows all that stuff because it's imported this here at the top. If I were to delete this, nothing would make sense. It would get all confused. And then the name of the class is obstacle. It inherits from mono behavior, which is a class that basically lets it be added as a component to these game objects. And then it comes for free with these two empty methods. They're famous. Everyone loves them. Start and update. Start, which runs once, as you can see here in the comment, before the first execution of update or the mono behavior is created. So basically once at the start of the scene when your object is just born. And then update is called once per frame, which, you know, depending on the speed of your computer, could be 10 times per second, 60 times per second, 100 times per second. So we're going to use both of those to make our obstacles behave the way that we want. Actually, I think the obstacles, we might just be using start. And then in the player, we'll be using update quite a bit. Okay, cool. Jackson, do you have any questions about the default script, or you feel okay so far? Are you feeling overwhelmed? What is your level of coding experience? Yeah.
It was pretty much nothing when I joined. I am of an era where teaching coding was not something I learned in school, and therefore when I started here and started into some of my tutorials, I basically for the first like 3 or 4 months set aside an hour each day to either be in editor or trying to learn the basics of coding. It is overwhelming. As you were reading or referring to the disclaimer, my head was like, this is exactly what I would need to hear if I were getting in there, because I would get to this step and be like, oh man, I'm so stressed. I don't know what any of this means. But like you said, it is an element of repetition and learning as you go. So I like what you're laying out for me here, because you are kind of laying out every single step and what each thing means. And it's been great. So yes, overwhelmed, but I trust you in the process.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And I have to say that, like, as someone who is, I wouldn't call myself a programmer. I've done programming in the past. It's been a while. Hearing your explanation of this, of everything, just explaining all of this, is a good refresher. And you did a great
Excellent.
job.
Okay. Well, I'm happy. You know, if you two are learning, this is great for me. I'm feeling motivated. Okay. So, one of the other reasons why we chose Sprite Flight in this particular functionality is because the sequence of lines of code that we're about to write is like a perfect kind of gradual increase and building on the fundamental building blocks of coding for Unity. And so you're going to see it's going to kind of build, and hopefully by the end of this obstacle movement, you know, if things will start to feel familiar and a little cozier, you feel maybe a little less overwhelmed, maybe more. We'll see. We'll check in at the end of this tutorial with you, Jackson, especially.
Please.
Okay. So here's what we're trying to do. So if we go to these obstacles here, what we're trying to do, you might have noticed in the when James was playing through it, in order to make it more fun, each time the game starts, the obstacles are all a random size. They're also moving at a random speed and in a random direction. So that's basically what we're going to try to code. So we're going to start with at a random size. And in order to do that, what we actually want to do is, if you look at each of these obstacles, they all, in fact, all game objects have this transform component. And the transform component defines the position, rotation, and the scale of these game objects. Every single game object, even empty ones, have this transform component. It's the only required component in all of Unity. So what we are trying to do is basically edit this scale value at the start. So we're going to generate a random number and assign it here. So for example, if I'm going to zoom in on this obstacle here, if I were to make this one 2 by 2, that would make it bigger. You can see in the bottom here. If I were to make it 0.5 by 0.5, that would make it smaller. And we're basically going to generate a random number between, let's use those, 0.5 and 2, and assign it to each of these obstacles. So we're going to access this object's transform component. That's the first thing we need to do. We need to access its scale, and then we need to set it to a new XYZ value. So we're going to hold off on randomizing it. First thing we're going to do is just set it to a new value. So in Visual Studio, I'm going to access that object's transform. First, I need to say, hey, I'm going to reference that transform. So because this script is attached to this object, if I just type transform, and my autocomplete is telling me this, if I just type that, I now have access to that object's transform. And if I type dot, this is the really cool thing. You can see all the things you might want to do to an object's transform. And one thing we can do is get its local scale. And yeah. Sorry. Oh, did you say cool?
Cool. I said cool. I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm thinking out loud. I know that when I was doing these kinds of things, I didn't set up Visual Studio in a way where it would autocomplete things for me, and I found that to be difficult. But seeing it here in action, I'm like, oh man, that would have really helped me. That would have really helped me at the time.
Yeah. It is critical. So it says, so I've got the local scale. Now what I need to do is set it to a new value. So unfortunately, what would be really cool is if I could just type like, okay, I want to set it to 2. If I could just type 2, 2, 1. Which is what it was before, right? 2, 2, 1. I don't bother with the z-axis because that's not going to change anything. See, if I set it to 1,000, it doesn't matter because it's the depth and it's a 2D game. So I want to set it to 2, 2, 1. But this, it's obviously not happy with this. It's got errors. It says, can't, blah, 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 some scary stuff. So instead, what I need to do is generate a vector 3, which is just a piece of data that holds these 3 XYZ values, basically. So this is where things get a little bit confusing, and I wish it wasn't so, but here's where you just need, if you're new, you're just going to be a little overwhelmed, and that's okay. So transform.localScale equals, and we're going to give it a new vector 3, not that old 1, 1, 1 vector 3. We're going to give it a new vector 3, which is going to be 2, 2, 1. Interesting. What did I mess up?
And Aaron, while we're doing this, I want you to be aware, I fully understand that doing code live on stream feels very exposing, and understand everyone that I've seen on stream in situations like this, everyone proposes solutions as they immediately are right now. So you're in good company. We've got a team behind you. No one's working against you on this.
Oh, interesting. I wonder if somehow this got, okay. Wow. Okay. So when I typed that, you know how you just said that autocomplete is helpful?
Yes.
Well, it actually just tried to destroy me there, and I was feeling very stressed. When I typed it, it added this new library, basically, automatically, thinking that it would be helpful. But then this got confused about which one are you talking about, basically. It said it's ambiguous. Okay. So now, phew. That I was genuinely starting to sweat, and
I could tell. I hopped in there with a disclaimer. Everyone's on your side here, and I will say, in that time, 10 to 12 different messages came through of people trying to propose solutions. So no one's like, "Nice, what a dingus." Everyone's like, "Hey, I can help here," and I love that about the Unity community.
I love it. Thankfully, I just needed to scroll up, and I saw the sneaky thing. Okay, so now
you passed.
Yeah, excellent. So now, basically, at the start, it should make it twice as big. So if we go back to Unity here, oh, I'm gonna have to reset that one to normal size. Oops. Yeah. So now, when I run it, Jackson, what do you think is gonna happen?
One of them's gonna get bigger.
Oh,
because
they all got bigger.
We did it to the prefab?
We did it to the prefab.
I'm learning.
Yeah.
Sorry,
exactly.
I'm really excited about this.
Yeah. Okay, well now, that was cool. But now what we need to do is actually make it a random size, because that was just kind of like a proof of concept. Okay, hey, we can edit the size. But now, instead of this new vector 3, this kind of random doubling of it, we're going to create a new random value between 0.5 and 2. And instead of setting it to that, we're going to set it to the new randomness. Okay, so I'm going to declare a new variable here, and it's going to be a float. And a float is just a number that has decimals, and that will allow us to use 0.5. It's short for floating point number. So I'm going to define a new float variable, and I'm going to name it random size. I can name this whatever I wanted. And I'm going to define it here as a random range between 0.5 and 2. So here's where random is actually a class that has all kinds of helpful things that you could generate random stuff. Look, you could random range, random inside unit sphere, which we'll actually be using later. And we're going to be doing random range. And now random range, it says, returns a random float within 2 values, min inclusive, max inclusive. So I'm going to do 0.5 and, oh, see, you're going to see it's going to get upset here. 2.0. Now it's upset. Let's didn't do anything like this because when you define a float, you need to say, hey, you're a float. You end with an F. And so now we've got our random size value, but we haven't actually used it because we're still just randomly setting it to 2. So now I'm going to copy this variable, and I'm going to, oops, I also realized I put this in the wrong place. I actually want to do it at start. And that way, at the beginning of the scene, each object at the start will generate its own random size value. And that's where we're going to use this here and replace the 2 and the 2. So now instead of 2, 2, 1, it's random size 1. So that should, all right. What's your guess, Jackson?
Random. Well, yeah. Okay. So you've
will they all be the same, or will they all be different?
Prefab. So it's going to randomize across each of them, or does it randomize once? No, it would randomize. Each of them gets their own size.
Yes, exactly, because they all have a version of that script assigned to them. They're all running that same command of random range, so they're all generating their own random sizes. So that's already looking quite good. So we've got the random size. So now this is what I was skipping a step here. This is what's called some people call a magic number, or a hard-coded number, which is basically, but unfortunately it's dark magic. It's evil magic. It's bad magic, which, it's like Voldemort, would use this kind of thing.
Sure.
So basically, this is called a magic number because it's an actual number that is hard-coded deep in your code. And so if someone were to come in this code and say, wait, why is this 0.5? Like, I don't know what these numbers are and why they're defined this way. And if you can name the number as a variable, then it's much more readable, and put it at the top of your class so that all your numbers are defined at the top. So here's where we're going to define a float min size as 0.5f and a float max size as 2.0f. And instead of here doing some random range between 2 random, evil hard-coded magic numbers, we're going to generate the the randomness between min size and max size.
Okay, heck yes.
Yes, yeah, it's much nicer to look at. And then we should get, what do you think? Same result, different results?
Same results.
Same result, you got it.
And that they're random, so not necessarily the same, but.
Exactly, yes, very good. Good clarification. So yeah, we're doing great. So it functions the same, which is great, but it's better code. Okay, so now, yeah, we've got the random size. We're moving on to our next challenge, which is doing the random speed.
Yeah.
Random speed. Okay. So here's where what we need to do is this one. I remember taking my first Unity coding course, and this concept particularly blowing my mind. So let's see if we can get it clear for you both. Okay, so we need access to this component, this rigid body 2D component, because we're going to apply force to it. As I mentioned, the rigid body component is what allows it to respond to forces and things. So we're going to grab this component and apply force to it, and that's how it's going to either get shot to the right, to the left, down, whatever. But unlike this, where we could just say transform.local scale to get access to the transform, that's conveniently there because, as I mentioned, the transform is on every single game object. So you've got this kind of shortcut where you just say, hey, transform.local scale and get it. But instead, we need to actually get a reference to this rigid body component before we can actually do anything to it. So what we're going to do up here where we defined our variables, we're also going to define a new rigid body variable where these are numbers of type float, and we're going to create a new variable that we can get a reference to of type rigid body 2D. So I'm going to define a new rigid body 2D variable, and I'm going to name it RB because that's a sort of standard Unity naming convention, just a little cute nickname for your rigid body. And then what we're going to do is in start, we can do it below here, we're going to get a reference to that because right now, we don't know which rigid body 2D we're talking about. So we're going to say rigid body equals, and we use a get component method of type rigid body 2D. This is where the syntax or the types of like characters that you use is really confusing. And you just sort of need to accept it at this point. So get component of which type. That's why it's in these cute little angle brackets. And then you need these when at the end of, see how all these have open and close parentheses? Well, you need open close parentheses here, even though there's nothing in them. So now we've got access to our rigid body. That's great. And now we actually need to do something with it. So now that we have access to it, we can we type RB dot, and here's Jackson where your autocomplete would have been so cool. Look at all this fun stuff you can do to your rigid body. You can add force, add torque. I think you can, yeah, you can do all kinds of fun stuff to a rigid. I think add explosion force.
You can add is sleeping.
Yeah. Just if it's taking a nap, you can figure that out. Okay, so we can add force, and then just like we don't have our random direction yet, so we're just going to send it to the right, just temporarily before we've figured out our direction. So here's where we're going to send it to the right. So when you do add force, let's see if you like this, it says, okay, vector 2 force, and what, so it's looking for a vector 2. So we can send it vector 2 to the right. And here you could do left, down, up, right. But we're just going to send them all to the right. And then, but you know what? This is not going to be powerful enough. You need to actually multiply this by some value. So we'll just do times 100 for now. So now we're just going to test. And what's fun about this is that finally we can actually, now that we're applying force to it, we don't need to use gravity to see them move. So I'm going to go to my obstacle. Actually, I don't know if this is going to work. If I change this value in rigid body, the gravity scale to 0, I don't think it'll actually, oh no, it does. It affects all the instances as well. So now they don't have any gravity, but they are at the start getting pushed to the right. Oh, and there they go. Looks like they're racing off. Yeah. Pretty cool. But that is good and all. But we now need to make them move at a random speed. And this is now going to start to feel familiar, where we've got the, float min size and max size, and we randomize it, and then we use that random value. We're going to do the same thing with min speed, max speeds. We're going to randomize it, and then we're going to use that random value just like we did before. So yeah, float min speed equals, the 100 was a decent kind of medium speed, so we'll go 50 for a slow poke. And then float max speed equals 150, let's say. And we haven't actually used them yet. And so
you forgot your F.
Oh, you're right. I did. I didn't actually add a decimal, so it doesn't yell at me yet. If I did, then it would. But good catch. That is good coding practice, James.
Love it.
Keeping me honest. I appreciate it.
That's what team coding looks like. I love it.
Yep. Okay. So now we actually need to generate a random value. And we could just copy and paste this because it's basically the same thing. So here above where we add force, we're going to do float random speed equals random range, min speed, and max speed. Okay, so now we've got our random speed, and instead of 100, we just need to actually use this variable. So you see it's very, very similar to what we did here.
Sweet.
except it's with min speed and max speed. And now,
and they're all going to go right still. Is that correct?
they're all still going to go right until we randomize the direction, which is our next task after we have successfully done this one.
Love
There
that.
we go. And look at this.
Zoom.
Yeah, look at this slow guy.
Whoa.
Yeah.
We got that little slow poke there in the middle.
Yeah, exactly. And we can do it again just to see, it's kind of like I've done hermit crab races before on the beach, and it sort of reminds me of that. Yeah. Okay, so
Awesome.
That's looking good. And now there's just one more randomization party that we need to have, which is the random direction. And we're going to do something very similar. We're going to create a random direction, and then right here, where we're hard coding this random right, we're actually going to use the random direction. So we have to do it above where we add the force again, because we have to generate our random direction before we add it to the rigid body. So we're going to create a new vector2 variable. Now this is actually, I learned about this method, which is super cool, just for this course. I had never heard of it before, and I love it. So it's vector2, and we had a float variable, we had a rigid body variable, and now we're going to have a vector2 variable, and we're going to call it random direction. And you know how random's got random range, but it's also got this super cool inside unit circle. I think if I hover over it, look at this, returns a random point inside or on a circle with radius 1. So I can't draw. Can I draw? I can't draw. Can't draw, can I? No.
What are you drawing?
Well, I wanted to draw just sort of what it's doing. If you imagine a circle, and it's basically creating like an arrow randomly in random size and a random direction. Yeah, so it's basically exactly what you need. It's generating a little vector, a little arrow pointing in a random direction in a circle. And there's also inside unit sphere, which if you're doing a 3D game and you wanted something to randomly go in any 3D direction, you would use, but we're just doing a circle. Oh, so inside unit circle. Okay. Now we've got that. And then we've got a random direction. Instead of vector2 right, we do random direction times random speed. How nice and easy to read is that? So now we should theoretically have them go in random directions at random speeds at random sizes. Nice.
Wow.
Very nice.
Yeah. Look at this poor guy down here.
Hit with the flat edge.
Yeah. The dangers of being a flat top hexagon. Am I right?
It's true.
Yeah.
Should have picked the point top.
That's on me. That was the only decision I made for this project.
But actually, we are going to fix that with random torque very soon.
Ooh, I was hoping. I saw random torque on there, and I was like, "That's fun. Yeah. We should do that."
Although, are we running out of time?
I mean, we got about 15 to our light out, but we've got some space beyond that for sure.
Wow,
we got some wiggle room.
You know what? Then I think we're gonna fix. We're gonna skip the random torque, and because I want to get to the player.
Of course.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. Man, time is flying when you're sprite flying.
Exactly.
Time flight, sprite flight. They go hand in hand. Okay.
Real quick question from HP Read Me and YouTube says, "Are they responding to chat?" Yes. Carry on.
Oh, okay, great. So next we're gonna get the player in here real fast, just so we can have the excitement of flying through this asteroid field. So we're gonna create an empty object here and name it player. And it's going to be at 0, 0, 0. Actually, I'm going to move it down a little bit so that it's not right among this asteroid field when it starts. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to generate a little spaceship made out of triangles and such. So the children of this player object, I'm going to create a 2D object, a sprite. I'm going to start with a triangle. And that looks pretty good. But the problem with this triangle is that you don't actually know what direction it's facing. The equilateral triangle issues. We could make it a little, just scale it down a little bit. And now it's looking a little pointier. And, maybe we just, maybe I'll give it a little throttle, 2D object, give it a little square and put that, scale this down a little bit, move it down. Ugh. Oh, I don't know about that. Maybe I want to make it a little fatter. Oh, no.
That's good.
Okay, there you go. That kind of
Sure.
looks like an X-wing or something.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
James, how do you
I see the vision.
Okay. So, yeah, I don't know where I up to. Okay, there we go. So now it's ready to go. And we are going to, let's see. First thing it needs is some physics components. It's going to need the rigid body 2D, and it's going to need gravity scale 0, just like the other ones. And it's going to need, actually, I'm going to put colliders on both of these objects.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do some collider 2D, and I'm just going to do polygon colliders for both of them. And you can zoom in, and you can actually barely see the little triangle and square outlines, but that looks pretty good. And just to make sure that it's operating correctly, I could put it in the middle of this asteroid field. Just make sure that it gets knocked around appropriately. Uh-oh.
None of the asteroids go
It found
towards it.
Here.
I found a loop.
Oh, there we go.
There it is.
I put it
There
into
it
harm's way.
is.
And it bounces off of that. And yeah. Okay, great. So it's physically operating as it should. And now I'm going to make a new script for it. And I'm going to create a new model behavior script. And I'm going to call this one player controller. And it's got the default code in there, the start and the update. And I'm going to copy and paste the code and then just explain it, I think, because we're kind of short on time.
Yeah, that works.
Yeah.
I'll
Okay.
definitely review that way.
So here we go. I'm going to open this up and select all, Command V. And basically here is what is going on. We've got a thrust force variable, starts at 1. We get access to our plane's rigid body, just like we did here. Get component rigid body 2D. And then this kind of speaks for itself here. If mouse.current.left button is pressed, basically as we're holding down the mouse button, we say, hey, this is kind of confusing, but we calculate the mouse position by converting the mouse position on the screen into a world space value. And then we say that the direction that the plane should go is the difference between wherever your mouse clicks. So if I click here, it generates a vector between your plane and where you click. And so it does that by subtracting this position by this position. So if you've done your vector math homework, you know that when you subtract one 3D position from another, you actually get the arrow between them, which is very, very helpful for situations like this. And then what we do is we set the player's up position to that direction that we've just calculated, and then we add force in that direction times the thrust force. And if we collide with any other object, then we will destroy this game object, which is the player. So theoretically, that should allow us to drive the plane around and try to avoid these obstacles. So if I click, uh-oh. Here we go. Let's see if we can do some debugging. Aha! I did not apply the script to the plane. Okay, great.
I'm celebrating.
That is an absolute classic.
That,
someone caught it?
Well, me. My brain.
You got it. Okay.
Like, hey,
yeah.
Wait a second.
Yeah.
I'm feeling like I'm learning a lot with you guys. Thanks for being here.
So you see, I can fly my plane around.
Yeah.
It's already looking. Oh, see a very very uneventful explosion. But you saw in the demo that adding that particle effect and the sound, completely changes that from a very, very sad ending to like a pretty fun, exciting explosion party.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think I'll probably stop there, Jackson. And we made pretty good progress. I got caught up in the excitement of this obstacle script, and it just took me too long. I want to check in with you. How are you feeling about this code? Tell me your emotional state.
I feel like because of the way you explained it, I feel like if every time I had to write code, I had the step-by-step, okay, so now we need to change this. So to do that, we're going to have to take a step back and make these changes and then implement them here. And it's going to have this impact, right? To even go back and forth between writing and showing the impact in engine for every single one was super, super helpful for me as someone who knows very little about code as well. So yeah, in terms of how I feel about this, I feel like I could go through line by line and explain this to someone else because of the level of understanding that I have for it too.
Nice.
Yeah, and I'd say like just this script is definitely, and I think you mentioned this before, like it was a great just like building block for the next script. So when you went and explained the player controller script, there was a lot that, you know, you immediately just understood based on the obstacle script. Sure, the world space thing is a little different, but the way you explained it was it was easy to understand.
You guys.
It's what you mentioned at the top with the disclaimer, right? That it's like learning a language. And the first time you see something, you might not understand it, but the more you see it in repetition, the more it starts to settle in. So exactly what James said, seeing it explained the first time and then seeing it referenced in something else kind of related to it creates that level of understanding. It was great. It was really well done this way.
Nice. Yeah. And actually one thing you said earlier, Jackson, about how seeing why you need to do something and then making the change and then seeing the impact that it has, that some instructional design inside baseball there is that, that's something we really strive for, that everything you do, you can understand why you need to do it and then you can see the effect of it. And that just makes for so many of those kind of aha moments and like really satisfying learning experiences where you can do a thing and then see its effect, do a thing, see its effect.
Yeah, 100%, which is super cool. So you mentioned this is in a lot of the different coursework that we do with Learn, where people are going to see those direct impacts. That's awesome. Yeah. I think I think this is the ideal way to learn, but is there ever going to be a situation where someone is sitting with a seasoned veteran, having them go through every single step? Not likely. However, I know we've talked about it a number of times where we've said, what if we have a beginner, maybe me, if I'm feeling brave, go through learning essentials with members of the Learn team? And I think there's something to that because I think everybody's learned a lot today. And Aaron, I know when we were talking about doing this stream, you were like, this is a really beginner course. I'm not sure if there's going to be interest here. We have a couple of hundred people watching right now, which to me shows that level of interest. Again, returning to basics is important. Seeing each other learn and growing together is very, very cool. So maybe that is something that we'll continue to explore for future, because I do think it would be a really fun kind of approach to creating content within this community and within the squad. So something to think about for future. But as we discussed earlier in the show as well, if you, Unity community, are watching this and you're like, oh man, it'd be really cool to see some Learn content, something broken down this way on this topic, put it in the comments of this YouTube video because the team pays attention. They're great at kind of maybe not responding one-to-one to every single comment, but taking a temperature check, seeing where there's interest, and then creating content to kind of align. So please, like, again, the reason we do these live streams is to connect with you all in the Unity community, connect you with each other and that sort of thing. So we want this to be a dialogue. We want this to be part of a conversation for sure. Aaron and James, how do you guys feel and win today? You guys have a good time?
Oh yeah. Yeah,
good.
I had a great time. I'm actually just most excited to see, of all the people who are watching this, who of them going through this course, and then I would love to see just like different variations of this game.
Yeah,
even if you are more experienced and like this is just easy peasy for you, definitely create your own version of this game. Would love to see it on Unity Play.
Yeah. To another thing we strive for, like James was saying about the final product being the beginning, that's the great thing about this project, is that you're a player trying to avoid things. And that is the basis of so many games. And it's just like Rollerball, where you're a ball trying to collect things and avoid other things. And obviously that's, I mean, you got Pac-Man, you got endless examples where that's the premise basically.
Yeah, foundations and fundamentals,
Yeah.
right? We had a comment here to James to what you were saying in terms of seeing people put their own spin on these things and upload them play.unity.com. We had Abuka earlier say, I was and am working on a space shooter project scarily exactly like this. I guess I'll have to add more crazy features so people don't say I copied you guys. That's the great thing about this type of project, and we've touched on it a couple of times, is people can go in, do the foundation, and then once you're done, get kind of nuts with it, put your own personal spin on it, really develop it further. So I've learned in my time in community management that a lot of games wear their influences on their sleeves. Like, how many times do you see an indie dev put out a game and say, oh yeah, I was really inspired by these two games? So it's as if you took those two games and mashed them up, and people relate to that immediately. So I think you kind of putting up your own take on these types of things is very, very fun as well.
Yeah, and just nowadays, like, it's so hard to just have like a clear, just unique idea. There's so many games out nowadays, so many games being made. And I think what's just most important is just like taking whatever influences you have from, your other games that you've played, or even outside of games entertainment, and using that to influence like the creativity and the direction of the game that you're creating. I think that's the most important thing. Don't worry so much about like, oh, this is going to be too similar to this game or whatever. Just, make the game that you feel is, that you feel most happiest to create, and the love and passion for what you create will shine through.
I love that. Yeah, it's always kind of, we see the conversations happening in the chat during streams sometimes where people are like, oh, I want to make this game, but I don't know if it's going to be like commercially viable. And obviously, if you are doing it as a business, those are considerations you might need to take. But if you're doing it as a passionate person, a hobbyist, types of things, make the game that you want to make, and it'll hopefully resonate with the people that feel similarly. So I always think that is very cool. We do have a question in chat from Eddie Diong Umoa. When is the next live stream? I'm so glad that you asked. Our next live stream is going to be next Tuesday. We are going to be joined by Eka from the studio behind Thirsty Studios. That's Outer Loop. We are going to be doing a speaker series. They're going to be talking to us about how to manage an indie studio. This is something that they've had a lot of experience with. Outer Loop has released 3 indie games and is working on more. And of course, we've been doing a lot of content programming and planning around not just Unity skills, but game development skills in general. So if you want to learn how to create or tips for managing an indie studio, make sure to come on by next July 8th. I did mention it in chat earlier today as well. We do have another stream next Thursday for Android XR. So if you are an XR developer and you are curious about that subject, we will have that set for you next Thursday as well. Again, we are live on these channels twice a week. If you want to come in and connect with the Unity community and learn something about Unity and or game development, come and hang out as much as you possibly could. We did see some people asking, are we just wrapping up? We are. If you joined us in flow while we're in the middle of the stream, take a look at the YouTube link, as that video will exist as a VOD. We will have it chaptered out in the next couple of days as well. So pop on back and watch the entirety of it here. Is there a schedule of these events somewhere? Namaste. We keep them in a number of different spots. We upload them to YouTube at the beginning of each week to let you know what's coming for that week. We put events up on the Discord as well. So if you want to go and check out the Discord and connect with the Unity community, or head on over to discussions if you want to ask questions, find answers, problem solve, get solutions for things, or ask questions of the Unity folk, feel free to check out those 2 resources. Aaron, James, thank you both very much for coming to hang out. Always a pleasure working with you both, and hopefully we find an opportunity to do so again in the near future here. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Of course, of course. Unity community, until I see you all again, my name is Jackson. Have a great rest of your day.